Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vazrik Chiloyan, and on behalf of the MIT Armenian Society, I'd like to thank you for joining us here today as we commemorate the 99th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. Our event today will feature a lecture followed by some Q&A. It's with great pleasure that I introduce our speaker for today, Professor Taner Akçam. Historian and sociologist, Taner Akçam holds the Kalustyan and Mugar Chair of Armenian Genocide Studies at Clark University. Akcam, who was born in Ardahan, Turkey, was imprisoned for political speech while still a university student in Ankara and later adopted as a prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International in 1976. After receiving political asylum in Germany, he earned a PhD from the University of Hanover. Akcam is widely recognized as one of the first Turkish scholars to write extensively on the Ottoman-Turkish genocide of the Armenians in the early 20th century. He has more than 10 scholarly books that have been published on the Armenian genocide and Turkish nationalism in several languages. His most well-known are A Shameful Act, The Armenian Genocide and the Question of Turkish Responsibility, Judgment at Istanbul, The Armenian Genocide Trials, with Bahak and Dadrian, and Young Turks, Crime Against Humanity, The Armenian Genocide and Ethnic Cleansing in the Ottoman Empire. His book, Young Turks, Crime Against Humanity, won the Emmy Essay Albert Yurani Book Award for 2013, Best Book of the Year, and the Journal of Foreign Affairs chose the same title as one of the best books on the Middle East in 2012. In today's talk, Professor Akcam will focus on explaining why does the Turkish government continue to deny the Armenian genocide. With that, I welcome our speaker, Professor Taner Akcam.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction and here. And the places here. It's a little bit awkward because those who know me, they know what I would already say to them. So there's nothing new. I hope the others will hear something new. The topic is why Turks or Turkish government denies the Armenian genocide. This is $1 million question, and I'm sure that you will afterwards want to discuss the statement of Turkish Prime Minister what you do. And this is the basic topic in Turkey and the United States. So why do the Turks continue to deny genocide? So not only the Turkish government, generally I make it as Turkish. Or stated in another way, why do the Turks feel like lightning has struck our bones whenever the theme is addressed? Most of Armenian friends know. I heard from them. They have a lot of Turkish friends. You told me your story, for example. You have a wonderful Turkish friend, but you never open the topic. As soon as the topic opens, then the relations changes. In order to keep the friendship with Turks, it's better not to touch the topic. So this is the way how we deal with our Turkish friends. Don't open the topic. Be good with them. They are wonderful people up to the point when you open the topic. It changes. So why? I've been dedicated to researching the subject of the Armenian genocide since 1990. So it is almost 25 years. This question keeps getting asked over and over again with unerring consistency. The question is a simple one, but as the years have passed, my response to that question has changed. At first, I tried to explain the denial through the concept of continuity, namely governmental continuity from the Ottoman Empire through the Turkish Republic. Another way of formulating this thesis might be titling it The Dilemma of Making Heroes into Villains. The argument is very simple, and it goes like this. The Turkish Republic had actually been established by the Union and Progress Party, İttihat ve Terakki, the architect of the Armenian genocide of 1915. The founding fathers of Turkey were essentially Union and Progress Party members, and so a significant number of the founding fathers of Turkey were either directly involved in the Armenian genocide, or they enriched themselves by looting Armenian properties. But these individuals were also our national heroes. They are the founding fathers of our nation. So if Turkey acknowledges the Armenian genocide, we would have to accept that a number of our national heroes and founding fathers were either murderers, thieves, or both. This is a dilemma. Those individuals, as we were taught in the school, this is how I was taught in the school, were men who created Turkish nation and the state out of nothing. They define who we are. And this is true not only for the early generation of Turkish nation, but also for the opposition movements over the decades, and including the largest way of democratic progressive movement in Turkey that Turkey had ever seen, the 1968 generation and 1968 movement, student protest movement. The representative of this wave, the 68 generation, and its political organizations strongly identified themselves with the founding fathers of the Republic. They called, I am one of the members of this generation, and we called ourselves, in analogy with the founding fathers, the second Kuvayi Milliyeciler. So they were the first national front fighters, and we called ourselves, we are the second national front fighters. So a specific term that we use only to define our founding fathers. And this strong identification with the founding fathers is not particular to the progressive 68 generation in Turkey. It has been true for any of the groups in Turkey. Talk to nationalists, talk to Islamists, or any right-wing circles. Everybody is really proud of their founding fathers. In other words, in order to accept the genocide in our present state, we would have to deny our own national identity as it exists today. That is a very difficult task, and almost impossible one, and very destructive also. Instead of dealing with the identity crises and the emotional and political fallout that will result from accepting the genocide, think about it. Wouldn't it be so much simpler just to deny it? This is what we have been doing over the decades. I started to modify it later. This was my early thoughts. 1991, 92, I wrote in that direction, and started to modify my response to the question of why do Turks deny the genocide over time. I added one more reason for Turkish denial. It is also a very simple argument. If Turkey accepts the genocide took place, it will be obliged to pay reparations. So simple it is also. The argument has some wider consequences than whether the event of 1915 should be called genocide. Let's assume, for a second, that 1915 was not genocide. And imagine that Union and Progress Party had deported Armenians from a cold, mountainous and infertile area to a sunny, warm and fertile region. Let's assume that, in other words, that the Armenians had been dispatched to glory. Okay, let's just imagine. However, everything that these people owned was confiscated in the process, and not a single penny was paid back to them. Even if you refuse to accept that the events of 1915 as genocide, you have to accept the fact that the country today of Turkey was formed on the seizure of Armenian assets and sits on top of the Armenian land. So simple it is also. So, as a result, if you accept and acknowledge that something unjust happened to Armenians in 1915, you have to pay back compensation. And therefore, in order to avoid doing that, denying genocide outright makes a whole lot of sense. So this is the other simple reason. I have continued to add some additional factors to explain Turkish denials, such as the phenomenon that occurs when you repeat a lie. So this is my third argument. This is the Pinocchio effect. As you know, Pinocchio, the more he lies, his nose getting bigger and bigger. And Turkey is like a Pinocchio, 90 years or almost 100 years we have been lying, we have a very long nose. This is the Pinocchio effect. So it is very difficult. Imagine in your everyday life, if you lie once to your friend, it's very hard to say, I'm sorry, I lied to you and cheat. Imagine your relations with your daughters or your children. If you start lying, it is really very hard to reverse. This Pinocchio effect plays an important role in Turkish denial. They can hardly really make it reverse what they have been doing over 99 years. This is the Pinocchio effect, another important factor why we Turks deny the Armenian genocide. But these points are only useful for explaining why state has continued to deny the genocide. As the year passed, I started to write that the term Turkish denial was inadequate to explain the situation fully. I questioned the validity of the use of the term Turks to reflect an homogeneous entity that defines not only the people of Turkey, but the state of Turkey as well. I suggested making a distinction between state policy and the attitude of people of Turkey towards genocide. So let's make a distinction between state and society to understand the problem in a better way. I wrote extensively. And I argued that the term denial might be adequate to explain state policy, but not of the society. The attitude of society should more accurately be portrayed as one of ignorance, apathy, fatalism, reticence, and silence rather than denial. Turkish society is not a monolithic block and can be considered analogous to a train. It's made up a lot of different cars, and each car represents a different subcultural ethnicity with a different attitude towards what happened in 1915. I've stated many times that a large portion of Kurds, or the people from Dersim area, or most of the Alevites, accepted the reality of what happened in 1915, and that the real problem in Turkey is that these different groups have not been able to express their thoughts on it in a way that was forcible, firm, and especially written. So I think this is the process that we have been in the late years. Now the Alevites, Kurds, Dersivis, those small cars, minorities coming out from their hidings and talking more openly on 19. I use the term silence and avoidance not only in the sense of a single attitude that is jointly held by all segments of society, but also to mean not openly taking a stance towards the official state narrative. One has to accept that all of these distinctions are important and perhaps vital to understanding the development of civil society in Turkey today, but they are still not enough to explain why denialism is such a dominant part of cultural landscape in Turkey. So my thinking has begun to change yet again lately in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't mean to say that my previous explanations are necessarily incorrect. Just the opposite. I still believe that the factors play a major role in denial of the Armenian genocide. However, I have now started to think that the matter seems to have roots in something much deeper and almost existential, which covers the state as much as the society. The answer to the question seems to lie in duality between existence and non-existence, or, as Hamlet would say, to be or not to be. I believe our existence as a state and society translated into their, I mean the Christians, non-existence or not being. To accept what happened in 1915 means you have to accept the existence of them, Christians, on Turkish territory which is practically like announcing our non-existence. Because we owe our being, we owe our existence to their non-existence. Let me explain what I mean. It seems maybe complicated. In order to give more clarity, I would like to introduce Habermas. Jürgen Habermas, the German philosopher. Habermas points out that within the social tissue and institutions of societies resides a secret violence. This is the term that he uses. And this secret violence, Habermas says, creates a structure of communication that the entire society identifies. Through this way of collective communication, goes the Habermas theory, the restrictions and exclusions of certain topics from public discourse are effectively institutionalized and legitimized. What is meaningful to note here is that this structure is not imposed on the society by the rulers, but accepted and internalized by those who are ruled. There is a silent consensus in the society. I would like to borrow another term from another scholar, Elias Siberski, non-known, he's a Polish scholar. His life's very much similar with mine also. He was also a member of a secret organization and fought politically and so on, and decided to give up the political organization and became a scholar. So he has a wonderful book, nobody knows. I read this because my PhD advisor really insisted that I have to read if I want to understand something. This is how I met Elias Siberski. And he uses a term, in German we call it kommunikative Wirklichkeit, the communicative reality. And it sheds some light on the problem that we are facing. Siberski uses this term to describe a very important characteristic of secret organizations. He says, according to him, secretive organizations create an internal reality through a method of communication. This is totally different from the real world. The situation in Turkey that today resembles this very closely. As a society, we are like a secret organization, entire Turkey. Since the establishment of our republic, we have created a communicative reality. The communicative reality sets out our way of thinking and existence over state and nation. It gives shape to our emotions and defining belief systems. In other words, our entire social cultural net of relations, in sum, the things that make us who we are, or at a minimum, who we think we are, determined by this communicative Wirklichkeit. What is important to note is that gap between communicative reality and the actual reality. It is the gap, our problem, serious problem. In the end, this communicative reality has given us speakable and unspeakable words and has created a collective secret that covers our entire society like a globe. It has created on a big, gigantic black hole. We are today a reality that possesses a black hole. The existence of a huge black hole, or the possession of a collective secret, or creation of a collective coalition of silence, these are the terms that define who we are. We simply eradicated everything Christian from this reality. This is how we teach the Ottoman history. This is how we teach Turkish history. There is no Christian in that explanation and understanding. And this is how we produce intellectual, cultural work about ourselves and our world also. My opinion is that the secret behind the denial of Armenian genocide, or the unspeakableness of it, lies somewhere in here. What happened in 1915 is Turkish society's collective secret, and the genocide has been relegated to the black hole of societal memory. Since the founding of the Republic of Turkey, all of us, rightists and leftists, Muslims, Alawites, Kurds and Turks, we have created a collective coalition of silence and a collective way of communication with each other. And around this subject also, and there is no space for Christians and Armenians in the way of communication. There is no space in it. And this is, we don't like being reminded of this hidden secret which wraps around us like a warm, fuzzy blanket. The reminders have an annoying, irritating quality, and we feel confronted by a situation where we are unsure of what to do or to say. This is my experience with my leftist Turkish friends in the 1990s. Because the Turkish leftist image ourselves, we created a Turkish nation in a fight against imperialistic power, and we were fighting against Great Britain, France, and we created our nation from nothing, and so on and so forth. And Christians, they might have collaborated with imperialist powers. So they are the lank arms of the imperialists in Turkey. It is really very difficult to find a space in the mindset for the Christian of Turkey in their understanding. So because if we are forced to confront our history, everything, our social institutions, mentalities, belief systems, culture, and even the language we use will often to be questioned. The way a society perceives itself is going to be questioned from top to bottom. As a result, we don't appreciate the reminders. So this is the problem of Armenian friends with their Turkish friends, because this is the reminders to them that we don't like to be reminded. We view the reminders as false and react quite negatively to them. This is the main reason why we don't like the diaspora Armenians. Our Armenians don't remind us so much. But these diaspora Armenians, they are sick. They don't have anything else. They just remind us each and every time. This makes us sick. This is the reason diaspora is bad, but our Armenians in Istanbul there. This is the common logic in Turkey. If you go to talk with the intellectuals, even those my friends, you would see the same picture. So we view the reminders as false and react quite negatively to them. All of us, the rightists and leftists, search for all nature of excuses, but we together seem to be crying out as if in the cause. Here we are, minding our own business, not bothering anyone. When you appear out of nowhere, where do you come from? Why you are reminding us this? So it is as if we as a nation are making this collective statement. This is as if the collective statement that we have as Turks. If you think we are going to destroy the social cultural reality we created with such great care over 95 years or 99 years with one sweep of a pen, think again. So, finally, this is my closing remarks. Armenian genocide is a part of a more general framework which is directly related with our existence. The Republic and Society of Turkey today has been constructed upon the removal of Christians, the destruction of an existence over a territory which we call today our homeland. Since we have established our existence upon the non-existence of another, every mention of that existence imparts fear and anxiety. The difficulty we have in our country, or speaking about the Armenian issue, lies within this existence, non-existence duality. If you are looking for an example that comes close to this, you don't maybe need to look far. The history of Native Americans in the US maybe has some similarities with this also. So I think we have to reverse the question. The central question is not why Turks deny the genocide. The central question is not why Turkey denies the genocide. The central question is whether we, people of Turkey, are ready as a state and as a society to deny our present state of existence. So we have to start to deny our state of existence. This is the beginning. It seems that the only way we can do it by repudiating how we came to be and by creating a new history how we came to exist. Are we capable of doing that? That is the true question. Thank you very much for listening.
If you raise your hand, we can call on you and take a cue for questions. Yes.
Professor Akcam, I know that you're not crazy
Wow,
about, well, we are at MIT. Anyway, usually as far as Turkish-Armenian relations, I know that you don't so much believe in conflict resolution terms, but your speech made me think of one of the most important elements when you're doing conflict resolution, and it's existential fear. I think you're right. I think what happens is when you talk to Turkish people, it's that existence thing that you're talking about that makes people just go into a whole other psychological realm. I think it's true. And I just want to make a comment. I think it's not so much the Turkish people's being silent. I think they're in delusion. There's a delusional element, and that delusion is that they may think that they're liberated or, advanced in their thinking or modern. They don't think of the genocide as being an issue of social justice. This idea came to me very recently because I noticed from some Turkish people that they will be paying lip service to, gays or other types of people or ethnic minorities if they're like in the U.S. But if it's a matter of the Armenian genocide, if you approach it from a social justice angle, they look at you like you have three heads. Like they don't think that what happened back there is related. And I think there's a lack of culture of social justice and human rights, what it really truly means. More than just what's happening in the past decade, that yes, they do have civil society organizations and there are animal rights activists and, LGBT and, everybody has all this activity. But I think that fundamentally, people do not realize that what happened is a social justice issue. So just a comment. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes, maybe this is a realistic analysis, but I just still think that it is also a very pessimistic evaluation. Firstly, I mean not only about Armenians, but also Turkish state. If we talk about the state, it is very good actually to make this differentiation between state and society. Turkish state was never tolerant and inclusive to other ethnic minorities, other Muslim fractions like Alevis. Anyway, so this issue is not being resolved. So as if all the issues are being resolved and there's only Armenian issue, which is not true. There is this nature of Turkish state, I believe, which is the same towards Armenians, towards Alevis, this is my belief. And also, this separation between society and state, I think, is very useful because it gives us a chance to open up. In your speech also, you mentioned about whether there is an open space. But when you finalize your presentation, this is like a very big question, and there's no open space. We cannot move from that question, not in the near future. So,
or you can call it shock therapy. What you mean?
Maybe, I don't know, but this, especially what happened in Istanbul after the assassination of Hrant, gave me hope. I am more hopeful now because it was the first time many Turks marched in Istanbul chanting the slogans of "We are all Armenians." You even didn't mention this. So isn't there any potential among Turkish public, according to you, towards opening up? And I don't also agree with the statement that as soon as a Turkish and Armenian comes together and they fight. Maybe this is the truth for the mainstream and for the majority people, but no, it's not true for many Turks. I am Turkish and there are many Turks here, they didn't come to fight. So.
As a polite reminder, let's keep questions directed to the speaker. We'll have multiple rounds, but try and make sure it's not a comment-based, it's question directed to the...
It's simply a comment also, no problem.
I have a simple question that kind of reminded me as I was growing up. I always, because my family had relations, I have family in Turkey, that when they toast each other when they're drinking, which to me is a pretty fundamental social ritual, as I understand it, the toast goes to your honor, şerefe, right? How does that fundamentally, I mean, did your existential living versus, kind of accepting society and death and life, if you will, how does the constant reminder of an honorable society allow for accepting dishonor? So at a fundamental level, when you're growing up, I mean, it may seem trivial, but other societies toast to each other's health or to be cheerful. You always find these stuff different. But this is a society founded on reminding each other that they're extremely honorable. So I wonder how that affects that. I don't think it's causal, but it might be kind of almost freezing the mindset, because to accept dishonor in order to reclaim honor is also shock therapy. So I'm just interested in your comments.
Let me start maybe from the last one. It's a very interesting topic. There are some anthropologists or social scientists, they make a distinction between Christian culture and the Eastern culture of the Far East. They make the distinction between Japan and Germany, basically the European, and they say that the Christian culture based on the moral attitude of the guilt. But the Eastern culture basically on the honor. So the apology or accepting a wrongdoing only works if you have this culture of guilt, and to confess the guilt is the way of to save yourself. It's basically a Western concept, and in East the argument goes honor is the main cultural code, and it is not good actually to confess something. You just act in a correct way or you commit suicide. So the societies dealing with past wrongdoings are categorically different in Eastern versus Western societies. This is the argument. I personally, in 21st century, don't buy this argument so much. Our dear deceased Hrant Dink used this as a very strong argument. You might have heard him speaking, even in Turkish denial there is something important. The Turks were denying the Armenian genocide because there is something honorable in them, and they think that this is such a dishonest act in the fact, and they think that they are so honorable individuals, so they would never do, their descendants or their ancestors would never have done or did this crime. So it is, then he says that even in this denial there is a positive element. I have to speak to that. Denying is a dishonorable thing for me. And I personally don't really incline this honor thesis much. This is a very opportunistic argument that has been used in Turkey. When it comes to Bosnian Muslims, when it comes to Palestinians, when it comes to other people, we are the champions of calling everything genocide and walking on the street and acknowledging the wrongdoings. But when it comes to us, oh, we have the honor. What about your honor about the misdeeds of the others doing? I personally don't think that this honor argument, tribe argument, works much. But if I accepted this argument, I would say then denying is more dishonorable than saying that my ancestor had never done such a thing. So this is my response to that. I know it's important, but never mind, this is the issue. Another important issue is distinction between state and society. It's important, of course, to understand the Turkish state's denial. I'm much interested on the society's attitude towards Armenian genocide. It is very easy, really, to think and to blame the state. and to make some suggestions that how the state's policy should change. I don't think, if you ask me, the main problem today in Turkey lies in the state. I don't think that the main problem that we are facing today lies in the character of the state and so on. I think the main problem today in the society. Let me give you an example. I'm sure Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan, before making such a declaration, for example, had several polls and conducted, and now I think he's checking weekly basis the reaction of Turkish society, and I'm sure that he's now, rate in this poll, definitely 3–4% down. One important reason I can tell you, and this has something to do with me also, and this is really very important element to understand not only the Turks, but generally every ethnic religious group. Everybody loves to be victim. Nobody likes to be perpetrator. We play the role of victims in our understanding. We Turks, we are the victim of history. The imperialist powers, the bad guys there, and we leftists, we are the victims. Acknowledging Armenian genocide not only makes you perpetrator, change your status, you cannot blame and you cannot cry and you cannot play the role of victim. You will be accused with something, and additionally there is another point. You are not going to win anything. You will lose something. You have to give something. You know, being a victim is always a good thing because you want to take something. In Turkey, it's not a coincidence that all Turkish liberals, leftists, discuss the Armenian genocide as a question of freedom of speech. Because they think that they need something more from the state. So this is a part of a take campaign. So if we fight more for Armenian genocide, then we will get more freedom, more democracy. So you know you are getting something. But it's true, what it is the social justice, and social justice can only be established if you have something to give. I mean, there is no way around. We have to give something back to Armenians. It is not material, it's maybe, material, you cannot replace what lost, but you have to compensate. You have to give something. Of course, you can argue that this giving is also something winning and so on. You can describe this as a win for yourself, for your honor, for your society's democracy, and so on and so forth. But at the end, finally, you have to give something. I was thinking coming on my way, for example, give Mount Ararat, or give money, symbolic, give something. So this is, I think, the most important element to make it clear to Turkish society that they have to give something, but this giving is a win for them. This is the difficult part for us. And this is what Armenia needs. They need this satisfaction of the justice. And this is the main problem that we are facing in Turkey, and slowly it is changing. Until recently, Armenian question or genocide was or had been discussed in Turkey, basically a question of democracy, a question of freedom of speech, and so on. I think we got Prime Minister's declaration yesterday confirmed that there is freedom of speech in Turkey on Armenian genocide. This is what we have. We have to debate, discuss. So, is the problem solved? This was really, a lot of people was asking in Turkey. Even Hrant Dink was emphasizing this aspect. Freedom of speech are more important than anything else. So we have almost, we had the freedom of speech after Hrant's assassination. If you ask me, the Prime Minister's declaration is only a confirmation of the status in the society that we have. We had the freedom of speech in Turkish TVs. It was very easy to discuss, to talk on this issue, and Prime Minister confirmed now that there is Turkey is a pluralistic society and it's not dangerous to discuss on Armenian genocide. It is a public discourse. This is the parallel that I really draw with the United States. Turkey is developing like the United States. We cannot expect in a short term any state recognition of a wrongdoing, but what we are experiencing is there is a normalization process of talking on Armenian genocide. It's not, I mean, there's another parallel that you maybe don't know. We have now universities. They hire scholars for Armenian language, for Armenian culture, and it will increase. In the United States, Native Americans is a topic of anthropology and cultural history. It's not a part of genocide studies, for example. In the United States, we talk on Native Americans as a part of cultural history, and the United States government never acknowledges this one. This is the way the Turkish state society also develops. There will be more chairs. I mean, I know that in 3-4 universities, and there will be more on Armenian history, Armenian language, Armenian culture, and society will be ready to talk more and more on that issue, and, but not the state's acknowledgement. This is the process, and I think the main issue is really readiness of the society to give something. This is still considered as something that we lose.
I have a follow-up question to your comment, Professor Akcam. So you're talking about the psychology and that existential crisis, and you said that you have to move forward by rewriting, and that any type of move forward is reevaluated as a win. If you give away Ararat instead of being a loss, it is a win. But to me, that seems problematic that these are only short-term solutions. It's like a child who has never learned to understand that it is fine to be wrong and to meet with the things you've done wrong. Instead, you reevaluate what wrong is to be right in order to go through these actions. That doesn't seem like a solution. Could you clarify a little bit more what you mean by this step forward? Instead of this psychology being, win-win, everything we do is win, how to accept that there are wrongs and these are losses that are worthy of paying?
Let's take a couple of other questions, so then I'll ask. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I really appreciated your new theory of the past couple of years that you mentioned. To put the question in terms of one of existentialists, for most Turks, from what I've gathered, they think of the Armenian genocide as a peripheral issue, and the more I read some of your books and other books on this, I came to realize that it's not peripheral, but just like you stated, it goes to the core of the issue. But at the same time, as one of the questioners mentioned, it gives a really dark picture in terms of to be or not to be. So if we do accept the Armenian genocide, then we cease to exist. And then where does that take us from there?
Or define ourselves in a different way.
Yes, but that before that redefining, it's like zeroing it down, as we say right now. So can you give some pragmatic ways? Because I appreciate the depth of it and the philosophical approach to it, but I think we need some concrete. How would you redefine the Turkish nation then? Well, how do you envision that?
Yes.
Thank you for the speech. We cannot say that the Turkish state has not progressed. They were back in the 70s in complete ignorance. They completely ignored the subject, and then they said, well, it was the Armenians who committed genocide against the Turks, and then it was killings on both sides, and now we're in this really, I think, dangerous rhetoric. The state, as Erdogan said yesterday, it's like, we share your pain, we understand your pain. It's a pain that belongs to all of us. So I think this is, I don't know where the future will take us, because as history shows, the state might evolve further, as in like they can, that this current stage can be a stepping stone, or because the issue has been dragged for so long, they might just insist on saying, well, it was bad times, it's a shared pain, we all understand. So where do you think the future will take us? Where do you think is the next step? Is the state going to evolve further, or are we going to live in this current state for, I don't know, another 20 years, when the issue will be so dragged that everyone will just be fed up?
Yes.
Okay. So in December 2007, the International Association of Genocide Scholars passed a resolution resolution. It's confirmed that the campaign between 1914 and 1923, the campaign against the Greeks in Pontus area constituted a genocide. Is it the same concept as in the Armenian genocide, all the analysis that we have done here today? And have you ever talked with any Greeks from this area about this issue?
Thank you. There was another question that yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. My question and comment will be about one of the aspects of denial. I think ignorance is one of the most important aspects of denial. As a Turkish citizen, until I was 18 years old, I didn't know that there were Armenians living in Turkey before 1915, or they are still in Istanbul. So my parents, I think they have never read anything about the Armenian genocide, or they have never heard. We know that Boğaziçi University tried to organize this congress about Armenian genocide, and this state takes so many steps to stop it. So we have lived a war in Turkey. There were so many crimes committed against the Kurdish people in the last 30 years, and the Turkish people were not aware. So we are doing like an ideological aquarium. And I agree with the lady that after Hrant's assassination, we just started to talk about what happened in Turkey in 1915. So I'm more optimistic. And what do you think about this denial-ignorance relationship?
Let me wrap up. Then maybe can we do another round? Let me start from the last one. Actually, I didn't put in my talk today. I wrote extensively on it. Of course, the nationalistic historiography in Turkey, how the history was taught to us, was a very important issue. There is another important problem that the Turks knows, the 1928 alphabetic form, so-called alphabetic form. If you ask me, I would say it was a cultural genocide. A society's relation with its past was radically cut, and we were not able to read what was there before 1920. They didn't teach us in the schools, or still, Arabic or the Ottoman script. And I know from my mom's father was a member in the Turkish army, in the Ottoman army, and he was arrested, and it's an interesting life story. And my mom had some papers she couldn't read. Only after I really learned the Ottoman 1997 or 98 in Turkey, I was able to read. This is the relation of the society with their past. And amnesia, what we call generally, really is a serious, or was a serious problem, and still a problem. And this is now slowly open. And it is one of the really central problems in Turkey, education, and really explaining to Turkish people what really happened. Let me tell you one anecdote. In 2000, there was something backdoors talk. I was one of the individuals in that talk, and I don't want to give the names, but at least we got in touch with Turkish military to solve the Armenian question as usual. They always want to solve the problem. And then the main question was to establish a historian commission and so on. I discussed with Hakan Dadrian, Richard Kovanissian, and they were not very happy with the idea, but at the end said, okay, I mean, if you think that there would be something from this effort, let's do it. And we had two important preconditions, or one important precondition for this process. We said that there will be live TV talks maybe every 15 days without any interruption, and we will talk to Turkish people directly. We didn't hear anything. This is my belief. If we have the opportunity in this country to talk to our people and to tell, and the development after Hrant is a science, and internet and technological developments, now the people have the access to information, it changes radically. So this is really an important point. Education, basically in big cities among the Turks. Not much among the Kurds or Dersim Alevites, because if you talk to them, they tell you the family stories. Regarding the Greek Pontus genocide, it's a totally different topic. I would suggest a new approach to all these entire questions. I think we should really talk from an Ottoman genocide. Time periods, we might debate about it, when it started, when it ended. So I am now more and more inclined to consider genocide not a one single event, but a process that began maybe 1878 with the Berlin Conference, or if you want, it started with 1894-96 Akçam era massacres and continued all the way until 1923. And of course, the violence used against different ethnic religious groups were different in different periods. So, for example, during the First World War, what happened to Greeks cannot be called genocide because they didn't touch the Greeks between 1913 and 1918. But they touched the Greeks 1921, 22, the Pontus, basically. And so on. I mean, different violent sources, ethnic cleansing, genocide, mass deportation, they all used all these methods, but it was really a process. This was the cleansing of Christians of Anatolia. I think this is the way that we have to discuss, and we have to really include more the Greeks, Assyrians, and all other Christian elements. And this is a discussion that the scholars should get really used to. All other questions have a common ground about the future and how we should define the Turkish identity and what is the positive, I mean, that I'm very pessimist, and what is the positive feature of it. I think for the future and for us, there are three important political aspects that we have to raise. Coming from the politics, I know all the politics, so here is my political take of all this discussion. Ignore Prime Minister's statement. Regardless how important it is, I know, I discussed with my friends in Istanbul, and they said that now at least the conservative Muslims in Anatolia had an open ear to us, they can hear us. Might be true. Ignore it. For me, it was a jump to the last card of the train, because we have the overhand after Iran's assassination. We didn't pay any attention to them, and they know that the train is going past them. So, then what? Not jumping around like Halil Berkay crying in TV, oh my God, my Prime Minister did an incredible step towards forward. Forget all this. Three important issues for me. Number one, for the future. There has been a denial in this country about 100 years. I want to hear one sentence about it. Who was responsible? And what is the government position? I don't buy it as if nothing happened and Erdogan comes and says, oh, now this is the way that I'm dealing. No. Who was responsible? He did the same thing for Kurdish issue. I salute this. He said there was a racist discrimination in this country, and there was an assimilation policy against the Kurds. I came and I changed. You can say that it is true, it's not true. You can debate, but he took a position. I'm expecting a position on 90 years of denials, because I was the victim of this denial. I was not victim of anything else. But this denial, I was a victim. Hrant Dink was a victim. We want an answer to that question, number one. So there is no way around. I am expecting an explanation, and we have to explain. We have to wait an explanation. And the second important question, you cannot put all debts in one basket and say that we are sorry for all of them. It doesn't work. We have to make a distinction between mass crime, a crime committed by a state, and that of soldiers during the war or other difficulties. They cannot get mixed. A crime must be acknowledged as a crime. There is no way back. This is my second threshold. And an apology for this crime. This is the second point. No putting everything, Turks suffered, Arabs suffered, Muslims suffered, and the Armenians suffered. No. Of course everybody suffered. But the suffering, and we are not putting in the hierarchy, and we know enough from all other Holocausts and all other genocide, especially from Holocaust. If a German would come up and say, you know, the Germans also suffered during Holocaust, it would be tremendous. So this is the second. Third, there is something wrong. There has been something wrong inflicted on Armenians, and Turkish government, without hesitating, should start talking with Armenian government and diaspora to rectify these wrongdoings. This is a process of negotiation. I mean, what should be the rectification? How could this historic wrongdoing be satisfied? And this should be an open discussion process with Armenian government and with diaspora representative. This is Armenian states and diaspora's job, maybe to create like Israel. I mean, Israel was not only the negotiation partner with German government at that period. They created a board and they negotiated through that channels. This is an important issue, but Turkish government should start talking and show its readiness to rectify this historic wrongdoings. These three elements, as a Turk, I would say, I am the Turk, and I define Turkishness in a different way than all Turks have defined it until now. This is the Turk that should be. And I don't want anyone really, how do we call it, state my, I forgot now. Forehead with these really past crimes. And it is the democratic Turkey in that sense. It is democratic culture in that sense that we have to create. And we should really shout, yes, we are Turks. And from the beginning on, I never changed this attitude. I'm talking as a Turk, not because I give any value to be a Turk, because despite my leftist, universalist, internationalist attitude, every Armenian friend see in me a Turk. I was, even when I came first to the United States, I was representative of anti-Turks. And they were really holding me responsible for everything. And so on. So really we have to start talking very honestly, yes, we are Turks. There is nothing to be wrong being Turk, and those are not good Turks. They are not Turks. I call myself, since I came, I'm a normal Turk. All others who deny the Armenian genocide are not normal Turks. So we have to increase the numbers of, this is very democratic attitude, isn't it? I mean, in American schools, I teach to my American children, kids saying that White House was built by slaves, and this was slavery. The founding fathers of the United States, I teach this in class. They organized the genocide against Native Americans. The students say, yeah, it happened, and they call still their guys as founding fathers. There is no a problem. Why? Because they were, they managed to put this distance themselves, their democratic values, and their own values. This is what we have to create. And this is really the democratic values that we have to work on it. And as an old Turkish leftist, I would say that now I would really recommend to every Turk coming out and saying, yes, I am a Turk. But I'm not from those Turks that you know. I'm a different Turk. And you all know, I mean, my Armenian friends also know, the existence of the Turks like ourselves changed the image of Turks in the eyes of the Armenians. So when Armenian friends today start talking, they don't talk anymore Turks, deniers. Even the flyer, they first wrote Turk, and then I think there was a discussion and they changed this politely to the Turkish government. I know I'm a smart guy. I understand this transfer. So because there is something going on there, and this is different than what happened before. Future, I cannot translate in English, but there is a very famous saying of Caliph Ali. You have to really pray as if you will die tomorrow, but you have to work very hard as you will never die. So this is the rule. This is a long process. I mean, the prayer that I growth includes the United States. I mean, the total solution is not possible in that sense, but at least we have to continue really to repeat the same thing again and again. And I firmly believe the statement of Prime Minister is another sign. Tell me if I'm wrong. We have the overhand in this society. We won the psychological war in Turkish society. I remember getting death threats. I remember getting threatening with death. I remember being dragged to the courtrooms. I remember how scary that was. And I think the struggle that we had been conducting over the years changed the attitude of the society. I think we have the psychological overhand in the society. They stopped now attacking us as traitors, and now my Prime Minister elevated my ideas on the level of pluralistic society and pluralistic. Oh, thank you very much. I don't need his confirmation. It is important for Turkey, I know that, but this is so normal. And I'm a little bit really disappointed that somebody thinks that this is a big step. Considering my own ideas, my own thoughts, as one of the thoughts, as a reason is an important step towards forward, I don't understand it. It's very normal, and I think we have the overhand in Turkish society, and we should work, we should continue working. There is no other way. And the most difficult thing is to change the society's attitude. If you pragmatically, if you ask me, I don't expect any short-term changes. Why? Because of Azerbaijan. I don't think that morality plays a role. I mean, we can really morally, how to call it, we can see to the choir and to ourselves. Everything in this world is material, is money, and so on. As long as Azerbaijan says, don't go, otherwise you are not getting any oil or natural gas from me, there is no other leverage that we have to pressure Turkey. There is two important pressures, this will be the main final, two important pressures. Number one is the Turkish civil society from inside, because those people fighting without any expectation. They risk a lot, they have been risking over the years, and it is important. This is one important pressure. And second important pressure, you all think that it is symbolic, it is not important, but Obama's using the term genocide, or any American congressional resolution on genocide. Why? Not because of the moral or international importance of the statement. As soon as American Congress passed the resolution that it is a genocide, there will be dozens of court cases against Turkish companies. In California, they lined up. And the court in California declined or said that they are not really responsible to make any decision because whether or not 1915 should be called a genocide is a federal issue, and as long as federal policy hasn't been defined clearly, we cannot proceed with the court cases. The moment that the Congress passes the resolution as a genocide, Central Bank of Turkey, Ziraat Bankası of Turkey, Sabancı companies, all other companies who are doing business with Turkey will face the really problem that their entire asset here will be frozen and taken. This is American law. I don't want to go into detail, and it's a pragmatic issue. If the United States want Armenian genocide question issue be solved, they can solve it very easily. My understanding is they don't want to solve the issue, they want to use the bullet to threaten the Turks. It's one bullet, if you use once, then you will lose its impact, of course. So this is the American government's policy. So there are a lot of ways, a lot of things in front of us. Thank you very much.